from scratch. I don't know how many of you have done any Android development. Like, raise your hands if you don't mind. Some of you, okay. So the code that we're going to write here is basically functional code and is going to be created from scratch. The thing that we have created beforehand is a project using the Compose template, which is provided by Android Studio itself, so nothing fancy here. And we have added the dependency to use the Realm SDK. To be honest, I have also updated the dependency versions, but that's a minor detail, so you shouldn't be worried about that. So what we're going to do here is start from scratch project, and from there, we're going to create an application that, in order to have some theme that we would like to cover, the idea was to create an application of something that I could be related to, and I own a meetup in Madrid. I am one of the founders of the meetup, and it's always hard to get people to talk for the meetup. So we were looking for a way to keep track of people who want to participate and want to be providing a talk for the meetup. So the thing that we were doing was keeping in this application track of the name of the talk, the name of the speaker, the date the talk was proposed, and when it was scheduled to happen, okay? Very basic, but still something that can be done here, okay? And do we move to the app from now? So the goal is going to create a basic CRUD application, so adding data, displaying the data, deleting the data, and we're not going to get to the update, but honestly, it doesn't change much. It would be very easy to get there with the code that we're going to write. And the final touch, we'll be doing this locally, and the final touch is that we will be switching that application from a local persistence in the device to asynchronized persistence using the Atlas cluster, that is the MongoDB on the cloud, and that will be able to share this data not only with other Android applications, but if you want, with Unity applications, with Swift applications, iOS if you're using iOS, or other SDKs, JavaScript, for example, or many others. So by the end of this session, you will have an application that can do all of that, okay? Fair enough? So I don't know how familiar you are with this, but just to summarize, this is the structure of the project, and here under com.mongodb talk to me, this is like the main package, like in Java, for the application. And we have a few packages here that we have created, model, view models. Have you visited this? The packages are there, okay. So the thing is that what we are going to do there is to create code using this template, as I said before. So the first thing that we would like to create is the entity, the model that we are going to use in order to store our data. And for that, we are going to create a new class that we are going to create new file, new class, and in this new class, we're going to put all the properties that we were mentioning before. So the name of the talk, the name of the speaker, the date it was proposed, the date it was scheduled, if any, and that's it, okay? So the first thing that you have to keep in mind is that talk has to implement the Realm object interface. I was looking for the word because I was about to say protocol as if it were Swift. Sorry about that. But it has to implement the Realm object interface. And that means that it will provide, the SDK will provide some functionality to this object magically. I mean, like, you don't have to worry about how this happens, but it will have these properties. And now we're going to create the properties that we are going to use here. So we will have the properties for the title, the speaker name, the date it was proposed, and the date it was scheduled. One of them can be private, as you can see here, so you can configure this as any other POJO that you have used in Java or in Kotlin, okay? And we are going to define a secondary constructor just for the convenience of it. Sometimes we want to have a different way to initialize objects. So here we're going to create a secondary constructor. And notice that in the initial definition of the properties, we have set default values for all of them. That is because we want to be able to create an instance of this without having to specify any of its values. But because we have added a secondary constructor here, first, it is complaining that it has no primary constructor, and second, there is no constructor that is generated automatically by calling. So the only thing that we have to do is to add parentheses at the end of the class name in order to specify that we want to have a primary constructor that is empty. Okay, that is all we have to do in terms of the entity. Pretty simple. Now, we would like to start with the application itself. So I have a list here that I don't want to miss any point. So the first thing that we would like to do is the view. How things are going to be shown to the user. What is the look and feel of your application? And we are going to do that using Jetpack Compose. Jetpack Compose is like the latest version of the UI for Android user interface, but you can do the same with Android SDK if you have been using Android before and you feel more familiar with that. In this case, we are going to go with that because that's a declarative way of declaring views, and also it's fancier, okay? So we are going to go with that version. So we are going to create a new class in the views package, and this file is going to be a talks list view representing the view that will have the list of talks on the mobile, okay? So in this thing, we are going to create a function. The only thing that it needs to have is the @composable annotation, meaning that it will be displayable. I mean, like this will generate a view. And inside of this talks view, we are going to put the organization for a list, which means that it will have an object that is called lazy column, and that it will have items inside of these lazy columns, each of the rows that it will be displayed. In this case, it has 2 items, and each one of them has a text and a divider to separate them from the next. Simple, okay? But obviously, we would like to preview that. Now, one of the niceties of using Jetpack Compose is that you can preview what you're doing. So we're going to create a preview at the bottom of this, and this preview has the same structure that the function that we were using. It contains the other one, so it's composing, hence the name, a view using the previous one, and it has this @preview annotation that is the one that is used in order for the environment, the Android Studio, to notice that there's something there that has to be shown, okay? So after compiling, you will see, it's tiny, but you will see it here, that it has these 2 items, but it's not very fancy. So we can add to the preview the attribute show background to at least be able to read the text, okay? Okay, so that will be in the preview annotation, and by recompiling the view, it will generate this in white. Still not very fancy. So the other thing that we would like to do is to use like the structure of a view. In a view, you usually have like the title bar, and you have some fancy things that are helpful for you. So in order to do that, in Android Jetpack Compose, we use the scaffold. And the scaffold is the thing that is going to be surrounding this task list. So here, we're going to use the theme. The theme is created automatically by the project when you create a new project, and it will contain the default colors, some attributes that you want, and also the scaffold is the one that, as I said before, provides the default infrastructure for the whole view. So by doing that, now you don't need to have the show background true anymore, because this will provide an actual background for a view, and also the title up there, and everything you need to create that. So that is a full-fledged view, but we haven't said anything about how things are going to be displayed in the title. That's what the title is still empty. So what do? Well, we're going to create a new view, and we're going to do it before the talks list, and we're going to call that talks list view, the one that is going to contain the title bar and everything. And this talks list view contains a scaffold and the talks list. And here, inside of the scaffold, we're going to we're going to add some attributes. One is for the title bar, and the other one will be for the floating action button, that round button that usually is on the bottom right of your application. Oh, sorry. That is what we're going to use in the preview, my bad. So do you mind, Diego, moving that to the preview? Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, here, get rid of the scaffold too, because now we have a scaffold already. Sorry. So that's, I mean, like, people talk about GitHub Copilot. I think that my Copilot is far better than that. I mean, like, he should receive a warm applause because he is the one who is fixing my code. I'm speaking, he fixes it. So, and there's no license. I mean, like, I'm not paying anything to Diego for this. So the thing that we're going to do here is providing some structure to the view, as I said before, and you do that inside of the attributes of the scaffold object. So here, we're going to add the toolbar item and also the floating action button, as I was mentioning before. So the floating action button has an on-click method inside of that. It is empty at the moment, and it has an icon which will be a plus to get the rounded button with a plus that you usually have in many applications. And the other thing, the toolbar title, it takes the title from the application name. I mean, very simple and very declarative way. That looks like a window, doesn't it? Much better. Okay, so now that we have that, we would like to improve the items a little bit more, okay? And instead of having these ugly items that only contain some text, we could have something that is a little bit better. We could have items that provide us some additional content. So we're going to go and add a third view that we're going to call talk list item. Yes. And as you can see here, we have a column, so we are going to display vertically 2 items. And the first one is going to be a piece of text with some type of font, and the other one will contain another piece of text with a different type of font. So one will be bigger and the other one will be smaller. We will have a bigger title for a bigger text size for the title and a smaller text size for the name of the speaker. Okay, so now that we have that structure, we would like to use it, and we would like to use it in the lazy column, which is the list that we had before. So here, we're going to replace these 2 items with, there's the lazy column? No, only the items. Oh, you were right. As I said, my Copilot is far better than me. So the lazy column now is using the 2 items, the 2 items, but the new ones that we created. So it's using talk list item as one of the objects, and the title and the speaker name are arguments for that class, okay? So now if we would refresh it, we would get this new data on the screen. But trust me on that, this is exactly what you get. Okay, so far so good. Our UI is being improved a lot, and now we would like to go and do a view model for this, because Jetpack Compose is mostly aimed at having model view model. So we are creating the model. The model was the class that we created initially. Yeah, I know that is very simple for a model, but we have to go with that for an hour. We have created a view, the one that you have just seen, and then we're going to create a view model, the one that will provide meaning to the events that come from the view, and also the one that will tell the view what has to be displayed. It will show the properties to the view that because of the updates that happen to those properties, the view will be updated there with newer information. So we have created this new talks list view model, and inside of that, we're going to create a property that will be observable, the one that the view will be notified about when things change. So we create this new property there, and it has to implement view model. Obviously, that's part of the Android world, and it will use the realm attribute inside of as the primary constructor, because we're going to use realm after that. Then we're going to... Just a second. What is realm? If you are thinking about that, you need...
Okay, now it's better. So if you need a mobile database, you can go with Core Data or SQLite in iOS, or you can use Room or SQLite again in Android because SQLite is everywhere. But if you want a mobile database that is lightweight and it works everywhere, you also have Realm. So you can use the Realm SDK just as a mobile database without connecting to anything. Just and you do your own data layer. Just sending JSON data to the cloud and getting JSON data and decoding JSON data and controlling all the threading. So you know the thing because you've done the same thing over and over, like 10 times, 20 times. It's always the same thing. So using Realm, the good thing is you create the local database, and when you want to connect to the cloud, you will see how easy it is. It's really easy. It's just changing one line of code, and you connect to a MongoDB database in the cloud. So.
And as Diego was saying, is the local persistence is free, and you can use that part to learn how it works, and it is open source. So you can learn how it works. It is open source for all of the platforms, so it's an SDK that you can use and create those applications. The last part, we will show you how easy it is to transform an application that is doing this local persistence into an actual synchronization with the cloud, with all the conflict resolution, without all the boilerplate code that Diego was mentioning, and without all the bugs that when we create this by ourselves, me included, you make a lot of mistakes because it's tedious code. I mean, like, it's code that you know how it must be done, but it takes a while to create it properly. Okay, so Diego has added the function for the event that when you click on the floating action button will be invoked here, and he's now going to create the property that I was mentioning before. So this property will be the one that will send notifications with the list of talks gets changed. And in this list of talks, we're going to put the content of a query that is done to the Realm object, the Realm result of the SDK that we were mentioning before. So here, we're going to have a private function that is the one that will produce a flow. I don't know if you're familiar with coroutines in Android, but it's basically like a sequence that is asynchronous. So it will provide you with new things as soon as they come into the database. So by having this query done to the database, now he can use the value out of the get talks and assign it to the property, and it will be updated instantly and transform into live data. Live data is the kind of object that Android uses to notify to the view that things have changed, okay? And that should be it. That we're mostly done creating, what do we have there? Oh, yeah. So, that's it, isn't it? No, that's perfectly fine. So, that is what we needed for the...
This flow thing is not the, it's not the kind of flow maybe you're expecting, so this is different. Yeah, bad joke, I know. So this is creating like a sequence of elements, and you can start asking for, give me next thing, the next thing. Just, it's creating a sequence. It's called, a flow of things, and you can map them. So what we are doing here is, give me this fire hose of, events or data, and we are mapping on each one. So give me all the things that you have, and then we are, creating a list. And okay, so that's what we are doing in just one line. So that's the idea. Is instead of using a for loop or any other thing, we are using a kind of, a thing that is giving us, feed me with more data, and then I'm going to map and do something.
The other thing that we would like to do here is to do something when the user clicks on the plus button. And for that, we are going to create a new object. And the thing that we're going to do here is hard coding it, okay? So we're going to create the new object here. And as you will see, it is a basic write of a new object that we create using the convenience constructor that we mentioned before. That makes things simpler. And we're going to use a counter to create talk 1, talk 2, talk 3, okay? But we don't have the counter yet, but hold on. But it is complaining. It is complaining because it should be inside of a scope that allows this suspend function, that is a coroutine, to happen asynchronously. So we're going to surround this realm write with a view model scope so this can run, okay? That's important, but that's a limitation of the Android platform, and when you're using coroutines, you need something, some environment that you can create in order to run asynchronous code. Okay, and we are going to create the counter, as Diego was saying, and that will be a property at the beginning that will hold the state of the counter, and obviously every time we will restart the application, it will start again from 0, but so the thing that we can do here is update this counter inside of the Add button tab. And by doing that, we will have a new version of the counter, a new value for the counter every time we run that.
I have a question because I didn't get this part. So the realm write thing is an async function, okay? And I can run the async function and I wait for it like without using this launch part. So that's the thing.
You can run any coroutine in an environment that allows for coroutines and a scope that allows coroutines. And in the case of a view model, that is a view model scope. And you are talking, you are saying to it, run this using the dispatcher IO. So it will be run on the background. You don't have to worry about how much time it takes to do the query or how long it takes to get the results back. It will, in this case, to write the data to the database, it will happen instantly and you will move on to the next operation of your view, okay?
Just the last question to sabotage because this wasn't a script. So we are using coroutines here. If I'm using async await in iOS, we use the same thing, but with task thing in using Swift UI. So you have it. You learn this thing once, and you can use it also in iOS. So they are, coming together.
Totally. He's totally right. If you use it in Swift UI, you will have the same mechanism to get asynchronicity. Okay, so now that we have that, we are going to be able to use the realm. And in order to have an actual real, we have to create an instance. So I know that this is not the elegant way to do this, because we're not going to do proper dependency injection here. Instead, we're going to create the instance of the realm inside of the activity. And in order to do that, we're going to do it here before the set content, between the set content and the onCreate. We're going to create this realm as a variable, but first we need a configuration in order to do that. And that configuration is the one that Diego has just basically written, which just says which objects I'm going to use inside of this database. In this case, it's just the talk one, and we create the realm using this configuration. So that would be on the next line. And after doing that, we can create inside of an instance of the view model. We need an instance of the view model that we have created. And in order to use this view model inside of the talks list view that we were using before, we need to accept this parameter. So let's go for a moment to the talks list view. And be sure that, not the view model. Yeah, so in the talks list view, the first function at the beginning of the file, we're going to accept the view model as a parameter. And here, we're going to use that view model inside of the floating action button. So when we get the floating action button pressed, we create a new instance. The view model is the one that is responsible for taking actions. The view is dumb. It shouldn't do anything. It just should notify the view model and say, hey, this is the event that I got from the user. What do I do with that? And the view model will do whatever it has to be done. So by doing this, we are now going to also use the talks list with the view model and use the list of talks in the list. So we get actual data displayed. Okay? So no, that is for the declaration of the, sorry, that's my bad. For the declaration of the view, talks list view. And we need to pass the argument there. Yeah, it's duplicated. Okay, So the last thing that we have to do is to invoke the talks list view from the main activity. That's it. And hopefully we'll have an application up and running that is able to persist data. I mean, it is hard-coded, but it's still able to persist data.
I have all this code here.
Yeah, no, you need to get ready of that and use it there. That was the one that was provided by the template for the Jetpack Compose project. And what we are creating here, sorry. Oh, that was in the, my bad. Move it to the view. I forgot using it. So talks list view, there, my bad. So we have accepted the view model here. No, the second one, the one that you have at the bottom of the page. So here we are going to create the property to observe it. And these items will be inside of the lazy column. So first we create the property that we can observe, that we will be notified within change. And then we create this list of items and we use them inside of the lazy column. So we will have as many items as we have as the result of the query that we have created previously. You see? Pretty easy. Okay, so now that we have that, we can go to the main activity and replace the code that we had there, hopefully now. Yeah. And this should be running. So let's compile, cross fingers, and see that my copilot has been doing much better than me, dictating the code that had to be. What is failing?
Because we have this preview.
Oh, comment out the preview, totally. The preview was assuming that there was no parameter for the view model. So we could update the preview, but we're not going to do that because of timing. So now if we compile that, we can go and run it, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I don't see any fingers crossed here, hopefully it will run properly immediately. Okay?
Just give a second to my Core iFire computer. Compiling and getting super fast.
So now that we have done this, and Diego will show how this works immediately, we will add functionality to delete talks, okay? Deleting really requires, I don't know how much you're used to use mobile applications. I assume that all of you use mobile applications every day. And if you do, you know that usually you delete objects by swiping them on, on the row that it is displayed on the list. But what we're going to do is to create a swipe delete object, and we are going to surround each of the items, each of the talks list item, we are going to surround it with this object that will provide the color, the trash can, and all these things for that. Okay. Add the object there. The delete. So the reason why the code is failing is that right before this session, we were trying to go through all the code together, and we created a prior database. And as you will see in a moment, we will update a little bit the schema of the database. And when you have some schema that doesn't match the one that you have declared in the object, in the talks object, the realm refuses to start just to be sure that it won't break the consistency of your objects. So because the object in the database is different from the one that we have defined here, it says, I don't dare opening the database, so I prefer to stay here, crash, but we can add an option there that is delete, realm immigration needed. That means that if you have a database there, and I'm developing, and this data is not worth it's not, has no real value to the user, it's just what I'm using in my development machine, delete whatever you have and continue with a new one, a brand new one for.
Just to explain the use case, I start, writing an app, and it's going to be like a, comic tracking app, because I have like a lot of comics, and then you decide, this is going to be a string, and then no, this is not a string, this is a number. So to make this kind of changes, or you get rid of a column or something like that, what this is doing, obviously, while you are developing, is like deleting everything. We have a surprise at the end for the development mode, so keep that in mind.
Okay, so now this should be running. He has created 3 talks, and the goal will be to add to delete talks now. So we're going to get into that immediately. So the first thing that we're going to do, as I said to you before, is to modify the schema. So we're going to go into the talk object, and we're going to add an ID. We want to have an ID. We could use the internal ID of the object, but in this case, we want to have our own ID, just because, okay? And this object will have an ID because we want to track it. We want to be able to go, and when the data is reordered in the UI, it will know that the object with that ID is the one that we are referring to for that row. Okay, so by doing that, the object is now different. What we're going to do is use that inside of the talks view. So in the talks view, in the part of the item, we're going to write that part differently. Instead of just item and the list of talks, we're going to use the ID specifically in the list there, yeah, line 45. So, is the whole lazy column? Yeah, perfect. So, you see there, it is creating but you need the talks. Okay, no worry. So, yeah, we will not need to have the talk over there, but we're going to swipe it there. Okay, whatever. So the next thing that we will do is to go there. You will get the delete, so skip it. And what we're going to put inside of these items is the swipe to delete that we were mentioning before. This was the one for accepting the migration of the database that I mentioned before. And this is the swipe to delete. This swipe to delete is an object that needs to create some state that will remember the file that you have swiped on, and it will be able to provide you with the UI, the red thing, and the trash can, and remember the row, and all this stuff. So in order to be able to remember that, he's going to create some state before that. So in line 52, he will be creating a property that holds the state, the dismiss state that we have used already there. And we are going to take actions when this state is finished, when it's dismissed. So in the next line, we are going to delete the actual content of the database. So we will tell the view model, hey, you do the deletion, as we did when we had the creation. You do the deletion, you do the creation. So that should be the whole part of it. But in order for this to work, he's finishing some imports that the editor doesn't do automatically.
I have like a bunch of problems here. It says something that this particular API is experimental.
Yes, and the thing is that in the Jetpack Compose version that we're using here, which is 1.1.1, which is the stable one, not the beta one, the swipe to delete is still experimental. So it needs to have an annotation at the top of each function that uses it. So by using the annotation here, notice that remove talk is still red because we haven't created that function yet. But if he goes like 2 lines up, he will see that talks list in line 45 is red because you are using something that is experimental API, that is using experimental API. So we have to flag to use the annotation here saying this is also experimental API, okay? And we have to go to the activity that uses this one and also use the onCreate and flag it as such. So at the beginning of the onCreate, you also have to say that this is going to use an experimental API. Okay, so by now we have all the UI in place, and now we would like to have the actual code that takes care of deleting the data. And in order to do that, we're going to go to the view model, and create the function there. The remove talk will be created in the view model, and we will be deleting the data that this talk points to, okay? So this remove talk uses exactly the same scope as we were doing before to take care of things asynchronously, and it just has to find the object and delete it. That's it. No, nothing harder than that. Okay, that's it. We are now able to run it and hopefully delete data. Diego, run it. It is the simple. Oh. Any other problems? Oh. So the next thing that we're going to do once we have solved our fights against the editor will be creating a dialog to enter the data. And after that, we will be synchronizing the data with the cloud. So by now, we have an application that is able to display data, to read individual pieces of data, to go and delete a piece of data by swiping on that. And we are going to create, at the moment we are creating hard-coded values, but we would like to have actual ones, okay? So what we are going to do next, were you able to delete? Yes. Okay, so I think he deserves a warm applause. I mean, like, he's the co-pilot here, and he's doing very, very well. So the next thing that we're going to do is go to the talks list view and create some property that will be we will be using to display the dialog to enter the data. We're not going to go to another different view. We're just going to display a dialog with the speaker name and the talk name, okay? So here, we're going to, in the main, not in this talks list, but in the talks list view, the main view, we're going to create some state, like at the beginning, after line 37, we're going to create a property that it will be the one holding the state about the dialog being displayed or not. And we're going to use this property inside of the at the bottom when the list is displayed. So yeah, right after the talk list, we will be displaying the dialog based on whether the value of this show dialog is true or not. So after this line, he's going to put in some code that will have this dialog represented. We haven't created the talk entry view yet, and we are going to do it immediately. And we also need a talk entry view model that we haven't had yet, okay? But give us a minute, okay? And finally, the thing that we would like to have here is that in the floating action button action that is at the beginning of this view, yes, line 50, we're going to get rid of this talk, of this call to the view model that was creating hard-coded objects, and instead we're going to show the dialog value. That's it, okay? Now that we have that, we are going to create.
If I've understood correctly, this thing is rendering the task list only if this thing is not true. So the moment you turn this thing into true, this if fires and the dialog appears. You don't have to present the dialog. You don't think in terms of I'm going to present the dialog, because this is like the old way when you control the program. In this new declarative approach, what you say is, I want this view to be configured this way when I don't want to see the dialog, and this way when I want to see the dialog. And you just switch this thing and things happen magically. Well, it's not magic, there's somebody, looking into it and creating the views using Android, regular Android views. This is the same for Swift UI, and it's the same for React Native, if you've done it. So it's the same. So if you learn this concept of declarative UI, not pushing the views, just, switching to a new configuration, everything mostly happens, okay? So I just wanted to, because I don't know this stuff.
Okay, so the next thing that we were going to do is to create this view that we were talking about before. So we are going to create a new file in the views package that is going to be called talks list entry view. talk entry view. That's much better. And it's going to be a file, not a class. Okay. And we are going to go with all the imports here. So this is going to be watch. So look at the awesomeness of the code. Oh, okay, you got it. So basically what we're doing there is a column, so vertical items, and you have the title, the button to dismiss the dialogue, and after that we have two text entries, so one for the speaker name, the other one for the talk name, I think it's the other way around, and you have the button to say done. This is this view, and you can go through it. The repo is publicly available, so you can go and check it later if you wish. And you will see that it has no secrets there, but we didn't want to go into all of this code because it's very similar to the things that we showed you before. And obviously, we also want to have a view model, the view model that we were talking about before. Notice that here at the beginning, Diego, before you move, so the view model is mentioned here, but we haven't created yet. So we're going to create this new view model file, and it's going to be a class, yeah, talk entry view model, and here I think you have to replace it, and it will create all for you. That it will replace. If you replace it, it will create all for you. The class, I mean. So this is created with all the things. So it's a subclass of the view model, and it has the method that when the data has been entered, you have confirmed the data, and you will create an object, as we were doing before with the view model scope, with the data, creating the object, and writing it. That's it, okay? That's all you have to do to create a new instance of the object. And by doing that, the only thing that we have to do is to have the import in the talks list, in the talk entry view. The import is there, Diego? Talk entry view, yeah. We will solve talk list view in a moment. Talk entry view, and check that the import is there, the import for the view model. Okay, so the thing that we're going to do now is to go to the previous view model, and we're going to clean it up, so we don't need the add button tab at all. That is happening on the other view model. And what? Oh, too bad. And we're going to get rid of it, and we are going also to get rid of the counter because we don't need it anymore. The important thing here is that we need to make the realm public. It was private before, and because we are not doing proper dependency injection, we're going to share it from one view model to the next. I'm sorry about that. I'm ashamed, but we can go with this, okay? And the thing that we will have to use is the proper getting in the talk list view and having the proper imports for the talk entry view there. Talk list view. Because it's red and it's complaining probably about the imports for the talk entry view and the talk view model. Talk entry view model. It should be in the dialog. Go a little bit down. Yep, there. So it's everything, yeah, import whatever is complaining about there. The realm is public. I think we did that already, didn't we? Go to the talk list view model. Talk list view model, and you have to remove the private word from here. In line 16, no, not that one, line 16. Okay, now we can share the realm. So every error has hopefully disappeared, and if we run it now, we should be able to get that up and running properly. So we can display a list of items. We can create new items with the data that is provided by the user. We can delete the items that we wish by swiping on them. So more or less, this will be a full-fledged CRUD application, as we promised, okay? But yes, this is not synchronizing the data anywhere. So how do we do that? Well, this is going to be very, very hard. I want you to keep your eyes open. because it's going to be fast. So we're going to do the synchronizing part, and we need to follow 3 steps that are very, very familiar to all of you. At least you can guess 2 of them, and the other one is trivial because of the dependency injection that we were talking about before. So the first one is to update the dependency. We will want the synchronization version instead of the local one. So we're going to go to the app Gradle file, app build Gradle. Sure, take your time, no worries. And here we have the list of dependencies. I mentioned that at the beginning, and one of the dependencies was the Realm SDK. So that dependency is here, and is using IO Realm calling library base. And instead of using that, we're going to go with the sync one. It's exactly the same dependency, but when Diego does his magic, you will see that it says sync instead of base. That's it, okay? The other thing that we would like to do is to create an application class. We are going to use that to inject the Realm. We are going to create it when the application launches. You know that the application object is the first one that gets launched, and we are going to create the Realm instance. In most cases, if you use Hilt or if you use Coin or any other, you would create that as a singleton that will be injected and available, and you can reuse it in every other view, okay? But here, what we're going to do is to go and create an application subclass, and it implements the application subclasses from the application object. And here we're going to declare a late init variable for the Realm, and we're going to create the object, the companion object that will hold a static value for the application. That value here, we have obtained it by creating an Atlas cluster, which is free. You can create that for free, forever, and it has limited usage. I mean, like if you want to use it extensively, you will have to pay, but for a basic usage, which is what you can use as a developer, you don't have to pay anything at all.
Can I say so? The good thing about this Atlas thing is that you can install MongoDB in your own machine, but then you have to update it. You have to take care of it. If you register for free today, well, every day, you can get like a free cluster. So these are 3 machines. So you get high redundancy. They are, synchronizing the data between this cluster of 3 machines. It's completely free forever. So you can create as many projects as you want. And you will get for free a MongoDB managed database. And when you are ready to scale up, you can do it. Or you can move it, because we are the only multi-cloud database. So this database is created in AWS, but you can move it into GCP or you can move it into Azure. And also you can move in different regions. So if you have like a ton of customers, say in India, you can move your database or parts of your database close to the users. So, and just, clicking, with a mouse click. So try to do that with on-premise. So yeah, that's.
Okay, so by doing what Diego has just explained, you will be able to create a cluster, and one of the functionalities that you can enable in the cluster is Realm Sync. It's called Atlas Device Sync as the functionality, and it will provide you with an app ID. This is our app ID, and we will disable it after the talk. That means that if you're going to use it, bad luck, okay? You need to have a new one, your own, something that you can use for your own purpose. But you get it for free. So now, this is specific to your application, okay? That's the important point here. And we're going to use the onCreate method, as we were saying before, in order to have that value. And this onCreate method is going to have all the creation of the database, but in this case, instead of being the local one, it will be the remote one. The API to talk to the local one or the remote one, same one. You don't have to change any line of code for the persistence that we did. So it has this running blocking, so it will wait for the data to be ready, and it uses like this simple configuration. Is a little bit bigger than the other one. The only important thing here is that you can use many login providers, but you can also do anonymous login. That means that it will know that it's your device, and you will not be able to sync to another device of yours. You need some non-anonymous authentication in order to synchronize between devices, obviously. But if you want to start simple, you can go without any, you can go with Google, any open ID providers, you can go with that, or you can go with mail and password or any other authentication mechanism. In this case, we went very simple, and now that we have that, what we're going to do is to use that part of the code. So the next thing that we need is to go to the manifest to be able to launch this application subclass when we launch the application. So we here in the manifest set the name to be using that class, and we also need to set the permission because it should be pretty clear by now, but this is going to talk to the network and say, hey, do I have data over there? Bring it to me, solve the conflicts, do whatever it has to be done.
And yes, it's still 2022, and you have to tell an Android app, I'm going to use the internet. So I'm not the flashlight application. It's like, okay, thank you.
Okay, and now that we have these two permissions, we can go into the main activity, the one that we were using to inject the realm into the view models. And in the main activity, we will be replacing the creation of this realm by getting the realm from the application instead of using one that we have created locally. So we are going to use the other one. So inject there and delete the next line. And as you can see there, is getting it from the application instance. And that's it. If I didn't do any mistakes, which as you can see, I've done a few, they will be able to run it now, and it will be synchronizing the data with the cloud. And you will be able to see not only the data here, but also in the cloud. So
we are doing live coding over Wi-Fi, over conference Wi-Fi. So as you can see, the data is different.
yeah.
As you can see here, the data is different than before. So it's not, I can add here and say not the same or something ominous like that. So, no, yes. Yeah, but not a difficult one for a Spaniard, please. So, yes, it is. Okay, that's good. The talk title, you mean? And the speaker name? So where is all this data going? Because right now, this data is being stored in a local database, as before. We still have like a Realm local database, but magically, it's syncing to the cloud. And if you get no internet connection, it waits until it gets, again, connection, and it syncs again to the cloud. So this is not only for mobile apps. This is for any device you have on the edge, like IoT devices, for instance. You have like a bunch of things getting measures or getting data from sensors, and you want to have them synchronized with using Realm. You can send them to the cloud, and you can use it not only from mobile devices. This is already in a MongoDB database, so you can use it from everywhere. So you can write your own Python script and get all the data or do your thing. So that's a good thing. So just to showcase that this is working, I hope it's working. So this is the talk to me thing. And I hope if I refresh, I don't know if this is going to work. But just have 3 talks here. No, it hasn't synchronized yet. So, big fail. So Realm is, is syncing when it wants. We can force it, but we are not going to do it. Just take our word that this is working. I'll try it while he entertains you. I'll try to force the sync.
I will be throwing the mic up and down. So, well, as a summary of what we have done here, we have created an app from scratch. Hopefully, I mean, like, we didn't go through every line of code, but as I said before, the repo is available. If you're interested in seeing how we created this code, you can go and read every line of it. You can tweet us about any questions you have later on. I mean, like, if you think that something can be done better, which I tell you, there are a few things that for sure can be done better, particularly dependency injection, that we're not doing proper dependency injection here. But obviously, it was because of the limited amount of time for the talk. But all these things that we want to have here, this is the Swift one.
Yeah, no, I'm looking. I will put the QR code. This one. So if you want to grab
The QR, yeah.
if not, it's okay. We will share this thing and the slides. So we have both iOS and Android. So it's the same application. So you can have a look and compare both UI and both.
And as we said before, we can create a full-fledged application. Having it up and running with a single entity is something that is easily done in an hour. And having it synchronizing with the network, it takes literally a couple of minutes, okay? So thank you very much for coming here and staying here. If you have any questions, I will be more than glad to try to answer, and Diego will be providing the right answers. And otherwise, thank you, and we will be around. Please catch us up.
Thank you for your patience. I know it's super hot. Just one more thing, like in all talks, just one more thing. We are down at the booth, so if you have questions, it's super easy to find us. We are wearing the Realm t-shirts or MongoDB, whatever, and you can find us down at the booth. So just come and join. This is not syncing because the database is local. I need to delete it, and once I delete it, it should be syncing. It works, so it's been working for years now. So yeah, just have a look, and you have another tool just to try. So that's good. Thank you.
Thank you.